Hello there everyone, hello. It's Carol here from the Crafty Emporium. I'm about to start doing a little bit of stash busting stroke creating because I want to use up some of my stash this year, and doing these envelope tag pouches that, if you watch my video the other day, you will have seen these. I thought, you know what, I need to start building up some of my collection of stash that's kind of almost ready to go. I don't want to get them to this stage where they're completely decorated. I want to get them to this stage where I've got a few layers on, and then I can start to add extra bits and pieces when I come to make the journal, so that I know that it matches well with the journal. Now, I already know that my style is a kind of vintage look about it, so I'm going to go with the vintage look. So the stash that I want to use up is, I have a ton, hang on, I'll show you, a ton of coffee dyed envelopes, and they've been sat there for a while, so I thought, right, that's it, Carol, let's get using them. So I just want to do some basic decorating, so I thought I'd just switch the camera on and you can watch along with me if you want, join in if you want, but I just want to do some basic, getting them to this kind of stage, building up a bit of a stash, using up my stash. And then I've got stuff kind of ready to go in a journal, then I can decorate them up as and when needs be. So I'm going to make a start with those. So I've got 3 different size envelopes here, already coffee dyed. So what I want to do is I want to use up some of my music paper, and I've got a piece already ripped out after my disastrous ripping out the other day, that I'm going to put on there, but I'm going to ink it up first. Now, there's something else that I want to tell you about the inking up, because I was asked this question on the video, as in, why do I use 2 colours? So why do I use my vintage photo and walnut stain? So I don't always do it, I just do it sometimes. Now, because I've ripped the edges of the paper, and you might not see it on this particular piece, but you open up the fibres of the paper, which means that it absorbs the ink a lot better. But the reason why I use the 2 colours is that it kind of blends the 2 together. If I do just the walnut stain, it creates a really harsh line. And whilst this paper is kind of aged, I want to give it a little bit of extra age. So I come in with my vintage photo first and do small circular motions so that it blends. I'll show you close up. So it blends from the paper's natural colour through to something that's slightly more vintage on the edge. All right, but I do that in small circular motions. And I try to pick the same spot on my mat all the time, so that I'm not getting ink everywhere. Now, sometimes just putting on the vintage photo is just enough, and sometimes just using just the walnut stain on its own is just enough. But just to give it a slightly more defined edge, and you may be able to see if I can get this really close up. Here, you can see the fibres of the paper. I hope that that's zooming in okay. So it means that when I add the walnut stain on the edge here, it will pick up the ink a lot better, and it just gives it a slightly more defined edge and ages it up a little bit more. But this time, instead of doing small circular motions, I'll go in like this. So I'm just catching the edge of the paper, and it adds a little bit of extra dimension to it. So it almost looks, you know, when if you were burning the edge of the paper, it ends up not being, you know, black or very dark brown. It just ends up being a multitude of colours. So it's to give it a little bit more definition. So I hope that that answers the lady's question. So the walnut stain isn't definite there, but it just helps to lift the edge of the paper a little, give it that little bit of extra colour. So you can see here where it's blended, so it's gone from the colour of the paper to the colour of the vintage photo to the colour of the walnut stain. Now, as I say, I don't always do it, I only do it sometimes, and more so on ripped paper than you know, a cut piece of paper. So I want to stick that on the front. Make sure I put my flap out so that I know that I'm putting it on the right way around. So that's going to sit in the middle there. And then going through the digital kits that I've got loads of scraps of bits of digital papers. Just bear with me, I'm just finding it in my pile over here. So I've got like this piece here that was from an envelope. Got bits like that that I want to use up. So I'm actually just going to cut this out. And then I can just tear around the edges a bit. So especially with printed paper, you can now see, look, can you see that white edge where it's opened up the fibres? So when they're open like that, as I say, they are more susceptible to picking up the ink. You know, just whilst I'm ripping this, you know when you get a song in your head and you keep singing it over and over and over again? Yeah. So I started watching Outlander. I'd never seen it before. Started watching Outlander on Amazon Prime, and they'd got the 4 seasons on there. You know, four series, I should say, rather than seasons, 4 series. And I have binged watched them, and I've managed to watch them in about, I don't know, less than a week, that's for sure. And I now cannot get that song out of my head. I keep singing it, you know, the theme tune. Loved the series. Sex was a little bit, 50 Shades of Grey. But, yeah, loved it. But can't stop singing the tune. And no, Kat, I am not going to burst into song. Kat always comments that she likes my singing. Even though I'm a bit rubbish at it, I think it gives her the giggles, to be fair. So... but no, I'm not going to sing it, but I do keep singing it over and over and over in my head. I wake up first thing in the morning, I'm la 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 da 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 dum, and it's there. Be like, oh my god. Okay, so I'm going to put that on there. It's open. I thought I was trying to put glue on with the lid shut then. That wouldn't have been a first. Put that on there. And then, actually, that would go. Right. I want to cut. Ooh, might have to put it on sideways for it to fit. Okay, let's chop that off. And then, right, I'll know what I'm doing in a minute, look. Okay, so I want that way over, and I want that this way over, and I want to put glue all over that flap. I think I might have put a bit too much on. Let's put it down. And I want it, that edge. So if I stick it on like that. Open it up. And then I can trim off the excess. Because I've coffee dyed the envelopes, the paper's very wobbly. So it's taken a little while for the glue to adhere itself to the paper. And then I'm just going to ink the edge up with the walnut stain. So like here, look, I've cut it. And so I'm not going to do the two colours. I'm just going to go around with the walnut stain and just run it off the edge. And then I'm going to call this one done, because that's as far as I need to get with these. So then I can, as I say, decorate it up when I actually come to make the journal itself. So that's as far as I need to, that's as far as I want to go anyway. I'm happy to sort of leave that as then done, so that I've got a small collection of them, part decorated and part ready to go. Now the other sort that I want to do is I want to do one with, or I'm going to do a few, I should say. I'm going to do a little square one with napkins. Do a large square one, Carol. So I've got this great book for all Jane Austen novels, and it's really lovely, great big pages. So it means that when it comes to doing stuff like this, they're just the right size, thereabouts, to cover larger areas. So then I'm using up some of my book pages, some of my music paper, some of my leftover digis, and some of my napkins. And I'll have a batch then semi-made up and ready to use. Ink the edges up again. Now again, this is where I'm going to use the two colours, because the paper's already aged, but I want the colours to blend. So vintage photo first. So let's use my Collal to stick that on. Let's say you don't have to use the two colours. That's just my personal preference. So I'm going to stick that on there. These lovely little napkins. And one of these squares, because I checked earlier, is about the right size for the envelope. So if I cut out that square, see, now that's going to sit on top of that paper lovely. But what I'm going to do is I am going to get my little brush and some water, Do I have any to hand? Oh, I've got a little drop in there, look. Because I want to fray the edges of this napkin. So if I just brush along that edge, I should be able to pull off the edges of the paper to just make it slightly more jagged, and then it blends in better, more so with like a white napkin. If you're doing it onto a white or a cream background, if you've got a white or cream background napkin, it blends in a lot better. Now obviously this is very strong in colour with it being that purpley blue, but just having those feathered edges just adds a little bit of a textural element to the overall finish. You see how it's given me that kind of feathered edge. Obviously I want to separate the layers as well. Right, now a couple of different ways in which I add the napkin to this. One is to just use a Pritt stick. So I put, ooh, I'm being attacked. I just put some Pritt stick on top of there and then add that on top. Because if I find that if I use even slightly watered down PVA glue, there's too much water in it and it affects this, and there's too much water in it and it affects the napkin. So I want a fairly dry glue. So one way is to use my Pritt stick. The other is that I use my Ranger Multi-Medium Matte. Now it is quite expensive and it's not something that I use a lot because of it being so expensive. So I use it sort of, you know, it's not something I use liberally, but it's quite a dry, wet glue, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to add some glue on there. It's wet enough that I can move it, but it's dry enough that it's not going to wrinkle up the paper underneath and it's not going to wrinkle the napkin. Then I'm going to sit the napkin on top. Should we have it at a slight angle? Yeah, let's live dangerous. Right, so that's going to go on there. So I just need to touch up under there. And that corner as well. Now it doesn't matter if this glue extends beyond where the napkin's going to go, because I'm going to paint it over the top anyway. So can you see, look, it's not wrinkled and crinkled. And then I'm going to put a layer of this then on top. Now I'm going to do it very gently because I don't want to tear the napkin. And I'm going to do it beyond the edge of where the napkin is. Now because I'm using quite a harsh head brush, it will leave some brush strokes in there. If you've got a softer brush, then it shouldn't leave those marks. And I'm going to just twist and turn my brush so that those brush strokes are not quite so obvious. Okay, that will do. And I think that will do for that one. So I'm now going to do, off camera, I'm going to do myself a few more of these types of envelopes so that I've got a nice small selection. But I'll be back in a second because I want to show you something else as well. See you in a minute. So here we go. I've made a few now. So that was the napkin one, and these are just basic ones just ready to go. It just means that I can get all my big papers out, do the basics, put those away, and then when it comes to doing the journal, I can get all my little fiddly bits out and decorate them up as and when, and in relation to the journal itself. So I've now got a small stash of those ready to go. Now the other thing that I wanted to quickly show you was in the tag pouch, envelope tag pouch, I made these, so I showed you how to make those. And playing about with my envelopes, I came up with something else, was to actually make it into a little tag booklet. So I've now got a little booklet, so I thought I'd quickly show you how I went about making that, and then obviously you can decorate it up to your heart's content then. So I got my 2 envelopes, one opened this way and one opened, get my hand in the pocket, that way. Alright, so I'm going to glue this flap onto there. So I need to just put some glue just around the edge. Where's me? There it is. Couldn't find my glue. So I'm just going to put some around the actual edge of the flap, and I'm also going to put some down the middle. Right, so I'm leaving this bit empty of glue, the centre of that flap, so that I've then got an open pocket, and then I'm going to sit them on top of each other, making sure that the line is, you know, the fold, the crease mark is in line. And then I'm going to fold that second envelope back and put some on the flap there. Just again around that outer edge, and again just down that centre line. Flip that back over. So now the 2 envelopes are stuck together. Now obviously as a little booklet shape, you could just chop off each of the ends so that you've got pockets on the outer edges. But if you're going to make it into the tag one, I'm going to fold it in half. Get my scissors and cut that angle off. Get that piece there, flip it over and put it in the opposite corner so that I've got it as a guide to cut against, so I know it then matches up on both sides. And I've now got a tag shaped booklet, and then I need to chop the tops off. I didn't do that bit. There we go. And now I've got a pouch there on the front envelope and a pouch there on the back envelope, and then I can decorate up again as I wish, in the same kind of, you know, using the same kind of methods as I used on the envelopes, by just putting some background papers on and then a front decorative piece of paper. And then when it comes down to using it in the journal, I can then decorate it up further by adding all the extra little bits and pieces up. So it's a little bit of a step by step. So I've got them in different stages. So I've got envelopes that I've coffee dyed all ready to use. I've then gone through those coffee dyed envelopes and set them up so that they're envelopes ready to decorate. I then set them up so that I've partly decorated them, and then when it comes to put them in the journal, decorate them up to my heart's content, so that I've got them in various stages. And it means that I've only got to have, you know, so many papers out on my desk rather than having a little bit of everything out on my desk. And then I've built up a little stash of pieces of ephemera ready to use in my journal. So I'm going to do a couple more of these envelopes to make them into tag booklets, and then I'll decorate them up with some basics, so then they're kind of ready to go. And then I've then used up my stash and I'm building up my stash. So there you go. Hope you have fun. Can't wait to see what you create yourself using some of the ideas, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.